Hi, today's tutorial is going to be on how can you deploy your web page Genie project on AWS. The previous tutorials that I did always showed the web application running locally on your machine, but what if you want to run it on a cloud? This is going to be what we are going to explore today in this tutorial by setting a Genie website on AWS. So we have seen before how to develop websites in Julia using Genie, but if you want to create a more permanent solution, then you want to host it online. There are a couple of solutions for that, but the most simple way is to use a virtual server or servers if you deploy it on a cloud. There is nothing to be worried about regarding a virtual server. It kind of behaves like your own PC. It has an operating system and storage that you can use to install and run anything that you might need to create for your web service. Now, one of the most used services for this purpose is Amazon AWS. In this tutorial, we are going to set up a server on this service where we are going to run a website designed on Genie on AWS virtual Linux server. In order to deploy our website, we first are going to create an AWS virtual server instance running Linux, and we are going to use the Lightsail cloud service for that. It has a free 3-month trial period, so you can try it without needing to pay anything. But if you want, you can use another virtual server. Just use one that gives you access to Linux, and you can apply this tutorial to it as well. After having the server with the operating system installed, we are then going to connect by SSH to it. The first thing that we are going to do is install Julia and the respective Genie packages that we are going to need to run our web page source code. We will transfer the code to the server by FTP. Then we will set up a reverse proxy with nginx to forward the 80 HTTP port from the client to the web service. This is common on web servers to not run directly on the HTTP port, and it allows to reduce the exposure of your server to the web and also allows a better performance and security. We also are going to set up a service manager instance to run and monitor the web page server. So imagine if, for example, the server needs to reboot, it can automatically restart the web page Julia process as well. So this is the code that we are going to use today. It's a simple Genie example. This example, it's divided in two different files, the HTML file, where we got the front end, and then the back end with .gl. So it's something very, very simple, and you can see that it's already being hosted on our localhost, so on my machine, with a specific port. You see that the port is never 80. In this case, it's 9101. So let's quickly go over here, right click on the web page and open in internet browser. Currently it's loading. This website is hosted on my computer. And you can see here, so this is the local host and our specific port. HTTP pages are accessible through port 80, not in this case, okay? So we got a specific port, 9101. But for example, if you go to google.com port 80, it's going to direct you to the normal Google. In our case, we don't have that. We have a specific port. If we tried, for example, to use the port 80, something would go wrong and we would not be redirected to our web page. So our web page is hosted on this port. This is not custom on the web. So it needs to be redirected when we host it on a server. The web page itself, it's very simple. It's just the example from Genie. There is a slider over here that is interactive. And if we select a certain number of, in this case, random numbers, we calculate the average. Quite simple, 2 files. So let's pick up these 2 files and send it to the cloud. For that, we are going to use our AWS, more specifically the Amazon Lightsail. And the first time that we access it, it's going to ask us to create a new instance. We just go over here and click it. Here we need to select our platform. We are going to use the Linux operating system, and we are going with Ubuntu, the latest version that I have available, that is 22.04. Then we are going to have a specific IP. So On our own machine, we got our localhost as IP, so 127.0.0.1. And when we create here a virtual server, we are going to have our own IPv4 that is accessible anywhere in the world. So if you want to share your website, you just send the IP to the other person. You can also create an URL, but for now, let's just focus on the IP. So AWS has a free trial here for 3 months. We are going to go over with the biggest one that we can have for free. And then we create a name for it. Let's just keep the default and create instance. And yeah, we are just creating our server right now. So 2 gigabytes of RAM, 2 virtual CPUs, and also 60 gigabytes of storage. The IP that we're going to use, it's this one for IP4. If you want the IP6, you also have it here. So let's wait it for it to finish. Server is created. We can quickly just give it a look inside. So we got the public IPv4 over here. We can connect through SSH by this button over here. And we are currently on the server itself. Then some metrics if you want to see how the CPU is being handled. Snapshots if you want to save your system disk on a certain state. Storage. Networking with, very important, the open ports. So we got currently 2 different ports. One for the SSH, so port 22, and can also be used for the FTP. And then for HTTP, also the port 80. Same thing for IP6. And then the domains. If you actually want to have an URL, then you need to register a domain. And I don't know, it could be just test.com or something. Okay, this of course already exists, but it's here that you can define the name of your domain. So let's connect to our server once again. And the first thing that we are going to do is install Julia. So download Julia. We can go to the official Julia webpage over here and then select for Linux. We can go over here and copy this command and run it on our new server machine. So paste. And what's going to happen now is it's going to install, proceed with installation, Julia on our machine. To finish the installation, we are just going to run this command over here. When we write the Julia command, it's just going to open the binaries. So now if I do this, it should work. Perfect. We are on Julia. Maybe I will not exit. So we are going to need to install next the Genie packages. For that, we type import package, then package add, then the Genie framework. It may take a while. It's going to be a lot of different packages that need to be installed here. So let's just wait. Okay, now that we got everything installed, we are going now to send our source files, so the files that create the web application, to our server. For that, we are going to do that through FTP. I'm going to use WinSCP. So for that, I only need the IP and also the private key. So the IP, it's very simple. It's this one over here. I can just copy paste. And then we need this default key is the key that we use to log in because we don't use a password. So we can go over here and download it. And then I can go to WinSCP, put my IP. Remember the port number, it's that port that was opened. Then I just need to select advanced, then authentication. We are going to select our private key file. And we can just go over and log in. Yes, accept, authentication. The username is Ubuntu. And we are in. Now, what we have here, it's on both sides. Here on the left, what I have on my PC, and on the right, what I have on the server. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a new folder, call it server. And then on this server, I'm just going to copy my GL file and also the HTML file. For that, let me just refresh. Okay, and I'm going to send both files to the server. Okay, so that's it. They should be now on the server. Let's try to give those a run on the server to see how it looks. So we are back on the server. Let's exit Julia and then give a look to the folders that I got here. And here we go, our new server folder. Let's go over there, run Julia. And now, if I'm using Genie, I should be able to start the server. So Genie, load app. And yeah, it's loading now the server, and then app. And you see now, we have created our server, but the issue with the server is that it is on the localhost with the port 8000. So if I try to access it, as I did before on my localhost, let's see how it goes. So I got my IP. Let's try the same here. By the way, the port, I think it was 8000. And yeah, it cannot be accessed because I can only access port 80 on the internet. And that part, it's not available right now. It's the 8000. So what we need to do is that reverse proxy that I talked about earlier. So for us to create this reverse proxy, we need to install nginx first. To do that, sudo apt-get update first to get all the new packages. Then sudo apt-get install nginx. Let's go ahead, yes. Then let's make the service enabled. System control, first start nginx, then we are going to enable it. Okay, so nginx is now enabled on our server. What we need to do now is configure it. We need to configure it in order to forward the port 80 to the port 8000. To do that, we need to go over to the config file. So sites available. Let's just change the default. So let me give a look to the default file over here and see what we need to change. I mean, it's the root. I need to point that to our folder. Then there is no need for us for this index over here, so I can remove that. Then for location, so this is our main web page, and this main web page, it's the part that we actually are interested about. We want to create a proxy pass to HTTP localhost, then the part that we have seen earlier, that is 8000. Genie also uses WebSockets, and in order for the WebSockets to work, I also need to create a proxy for HTTP version 1.1, and then also the other for the upgrade, for HTTP upgrade. And also for the connection. Upgrade. So this is going to allow us to use WebSockets. And I think it's all here. So we can just exit and save it. After changing the config file, we need to restart nginx. Perfect. Then I guess we can go back to Julia and give it a test, see if it worked. So using Genie framework. So Genie load app in order for us to run our both files of our server. And let's try app. Okay, once again, it's connected to the 8000 port, but now if we try to connect through 80, let's see how it looks. Welcome to nginx. So it's something already, nginx, it's configured, but it's still not connected to our Genie web app. So maybe I just need to restart the nginx service. Let's give it a look. and give it a little bit. Should work this time around. So Genie framework, load app, and app. So once again, port 8000. And if everything is okay, should be forwarding to port 80. Yeah, and it seems to be working. So here we go. The same web page that I have locally, it's now running on the server. So still interactive and still performing as expected. We actually got our server running right now. The only thing is I'm running Julia manually through SSH. So if, for example, I exit my terminal, then Julia is going to close and this web service is going to be stopped. We need then to create a service instance here on Linux where we can deploy Julia automatically. So even if the server reboots, the web app will still be restarted. To do that, what we are going to do first is we are going to create the bash script here. So nano, call it run server. So bin bash. And the first thing that we are going to do here on this script, it's going to our server folder. Ubuntu server. Then we are going to run Julia with all the commands that we need to run our server. But before, I'm going to define an environment here. Genie environment. That it's going to be... If I define this variable as production, it's going to run faster than only have it as debug. That is the currently one that we are using. We are just using a developed version of the site. If I use it as production, then it's going to be faster. And then we'll just go over to our Julia app bin, and then we got the Julia binary there. And I'm going to run the commands that I need to do to load my web app. So using Genie framework, Genie, then load the app, and then async false. This is the command that we are going to use if you want to have your server in production mode. Perfect. And I can exit and save. Let's give rights to this script over here. Rights to be run. And then I'm going to create our instance on the service management. To do that, let's go to system, md, system. Here we are going to create a new file called run server, where we are going to run our service. So I'm just going to paste here what I need to have, but I'm going to leave these commands as well on the comments, so you can just copy yourself as well. But very quickly, it's the name of the service, the user that runs it, where the service is located, what script we need to execute, then we remain after exit, and the users that can use it. Okay, save it, and let's enable this new service. Run server, and then do a reload of the system control. Daemon reload. Okay, this should be good enough. The test now is I'm going to reboot the server and see if our web page will be running as well when the server restarts. So reboot. Let's try to reconnect. So let's give a look to see if the service is running first. Status run server. It is running, and you can see that the web server, it's already started. Let's see if the app is still working. And yes, it is. Perfect. Okay, and then we finish this tutorial in how to deploy your Genie web application on the web on Amazon Web Services. I hope you like it, and I'll see you again on the next tutorial.